Drannith Magistrate is probably the most controversial magic card when it comes to Commander. It seems to pop up on social media as a topic every other week to form engagements on if the card should be banned or if people are just being babies about it. Whether or not you agree with one side or the other is neither here or there, as it opens up a much deeper discussion about the card. Speaking of forming engagements, if you like this video, do leave a like and subscribe, and maybe even a comment if you're cool. Obligatory YouTuber plug out of the way, let's get into the meat of the video. One of the most common defenses for Drannith Magistrate is that you can simply play removal to take care of it and just play the out. After all, it's only a 1/3 with no protection. It has the Swords of Plowshare, Lightning Bolt, Doomblade, Abrade, Beast Within, Strangle, and a bunch of Sandra Planeswalker cards. The list goes on. Not to mention the plethora of counterspells that can handle it as well, which I could list all of them, but then I lose my voice to how many there is to list. With so many answers to it, surely it's not a problem, right? We have answers, but people are just not playing interaction to stop it, right? Well, the answer to this is all much more complicated than it seems at the surface level. At the surface level, yes, there are plenty of answers to Drannith Magistrate on paper, and players should always have ways to remove it and any other potential problem permanent in their deck that can cause a problem to the game state. Before we continue, let's look at Drannith Magistrate and why people consider it a problem card. Drannith Magistrate costs 2 mana, one being generic and one being white, and is a 1/3 creature that shuts down your opponent's ability to cast spells anywhere but their hands. This includes the graveyard, exile, and most importantly to the context of this video, the command zone. In Commander, it's not uncommon for a deck to be built around your commander. It's one of the draws of the format after all, and Drannith Magistrate just completely shuts down your ability to cast it. It can shut down entire strategies as well, such as graveyard decks and cascade decks, since you won't be casting from the hand but from other areas. These ones are more niche counters to archetypes the table might not even be playing, and is mostly irrelevant for the purposes of this video, unless you really like Maelstrom Wanderer, I guess. This video is particularly focusing on shutting down the ability to cast your commander. It's something that completely shut down some decks' ability to even function. For example, if I'm playing a deck built around Arcades the Strategist, I need my commander for my deck to work 90% of the time. Otherwise, I'm just sitting there with a bunch of walls I can't do anything with. How am I supposed to throw giant walls at people without my big stupid dragon? As such, Drannith Magistrate can be frustrating to play against as it prevents the deck from working. There are plenty of other examples of this, but I won't list them out here because there are literally over 1500 commanders. And yes, I can remove the card, but that also requires me to have the removal in the first place. Even if I'm playing multiple removal spells, it still requires me to actually have them in my hand. Even if I'm playing 10 removal spells, I only have a 10% chance of ever drawing any of them. And this, my friends, is where the problem lies. Just play the outs requires you to actually draw the outs. Especially in a format like Commander with 100 card text. Yes, I know it's technically 99 setup. It becomes even harder to have the outs in the first place. I can't counter it early if I'm not in blue 99% of the time, especially because it only costs 2 mana, something that is very easy to cast out as early as turn 1 in Commander. So even if I'm in blue, unless I have something like a Force of Will or someone else does, it's hitting the battlefield. But I can just remove it once I or someone else has removal, right? Well, yes, but at the same time, no. You see, the issue is the people playing Drannith Magistrate. It's used with the intention of shutting off the opponent's commanders and incidentally other non-hand based spells like Underworld Breach, so why would they leave Drannith Magistrate unprotected? Most of the time they won't. Drannith Magistrate is just as easy to protect as it is to cast. You can't use a removal spell on Drannith Magistrate if it has something like Swiftfoot Boots or Lightning Greaves on it, or if they have a way to just regenerate it along with any other creature so they're not going all in on just the Drannith Magistrate. Even if it gets removed, the equipments are still useful for other cards, so it doesn't hurt the deck by playing these cards. They can be playing counterspells as well, making it just that much harder to deal with. You can't remove it when they can just as easily protect it, not to mention the plethora of cheap counterspells available as well to protect it even more from any removal spells. And we've come to the center of the problem. It's much more complex than just play removal, as even with removal, that doesn't mean you'll actually be able to play and resolve that removal. If I'm playing a stacks deck, I'm making sure Drannith Magistrate ain't going anywhere on that battlefield. Just play the out isn't the solution when the solutions are just as easily answered by the ones playing the problem card. It doesn't matter if I have a cast down when my opponent just has to counterspell to stop it. Even if all the players at the table are trying to take care of it, it requires a heavy resource investment if the Drannith Magistrate player is already prepared for removal options. If it has Shroud from something like Lightning Greaves, it requires someone to use artifact removal on the Lightning Greaves, and then someone to use a removal spell on the Drannith Magistrate, and even then this might be all for naught because they can just counter it anyways. It requires practically the entire table to work together in order to just perform this simple task of playing the deck by getting rid of Drannith Magistrate. And cards like this aren't a problem by themselves. It's perfectly fine to have cards that require everyone to work together to get rid of, and cards that are problems that need to be answered. Something like a Jin-Gitaxias, Augur, Blazing Archon, a Stormtime Leviathan are good examples of cards that can shut down your opponents. So why are these cards that the majority don't complain about, but Drannith Magistrate is constantly complaining about? Because these all cost a lot of mana. They require investment to bring out, and while they can be cheated out, they generally can't without having multiple pieces on the board to enable this. It's rare to get these down on the first couple of turns, especially in more lower power games, and there are a lot of moments you can interact with it since you'll likely have mana sources to interact with them by the time they come out. However, because of how cheap Drannith Magistrate is to cast, it becomes incredibly hard to interact with early, and if no one has drawn into the outs to it, the caster of Drannith Magistrate can get the protection ready to go. It's not like other cards don't exist that can also shut down commanders. You have things like Nevermore and Meddling Mates that let you name any card and prevent those cards from being cast. Nevermore is even harder to deal with in creatures since enchant removal is far less common compared to creature removal. If you're in Rakdos, good luck with all of the one good card that can actually destroy enchantments. So why do you never really hear complaints about this card? Because it only targets one card. It doesn't blanket affect the entire table, and others can work to take care of the caster of it. It's not worth using a card like that on a commander, as it doesn't do anything to anyone but one player. It's a one player hate card, and generally rather bad as you're spending 3 mana to just make the person who plays with you that you don't really like but you're too nice to say anything have a bad time. Drannith Magistrate is just a much more generic card while being able to affect the entire game. The mindset of just playing the out extends to about every other card game, and it's not exclusive to just Magic the Gathering. As someone who started out in Yu-Gi-Oh!, these kind of problems exist there as well. Most recently with Mystic Mind that was legal for 3 years that basically says you don't get to play the game. Like my point here, cards are played that gave it protection that even if you played the out and drew it, that didn't mean you were actually able to destroy the card, as you would just play the out on the protection and hope you got another card to remove it before they got their protection back. And unlike Drannith Magistrate, all you had to do was just slap that card on the field. It was fucking a nightmare. If a card warps a game state that forces the entire table to play around with it to deal with it, it starts becoming a problem. This is normally balanced by a card being hard to cast, and while other cards are arguably better, they cost much more mana, while Drannith Magistrate is almost trivial to cast, letting you even keep mana up for protection to make sure the outs don't handle it. Should the card be banned? Probably? In the context of the highest level of commander in CD8, it's perfectly fine, if not annoying. But so is like 90% of that card pool. At the lower power levels, it becomes much more unbearable to play against, as everyone desperately tries to get the outs and prays it actually resolves. Generally, at the lower power levels, commanders being the core of the deck are much more common, and Drannith Magistrate shutting them down as hard as it does is what makes it such a problem. Look at a card like Oko, Thief of Crowns, and other formats. It was very easy to cast and very oppressive. It was a powerful effect that removed a ton of monsters that made creatures basically trivial because you would just get rid of them easily. Other cards can do this, but because Oko is so cheap to cast and it just affected things for so long, that's what made the card good, and Drannith Magistrate is just like that. Anyways, that's a wrap on the video. Feel free to agree or disagree with my viewpoints. The debate surrounding Drannith Magistrate and the entire concept of playing the out is one I always thought was missing important factors that a lot of people overlook. I think it's fine to have cards with powerful effects, even ones that completely shut down game plans of other players. However, what I'm less fine with are when these cards are too easy to cast, as it then becomes just cards that can be brought out easily and protected from all the cards that were supposed answers. Anyways, I've been JPEG, thank you for watching. Remember, if you liked the video, do leave it a like, leave it a comment, and subscribe because that would be pretty cool. I'll see you in the next one.